From Avant Facade, we have Saurabh Chatterjee from Skyline Architects. We have Raveendra Gokavi from GGS. We have Sagar Kabre from Sagar Kabre Consultants. And we have Rahul Chopra from Everest. I request all the panel discussion members to please come on stage.
Good evening, everybody. So today's session is all about, vertical cities, why Nashik requires vertical cities. And I think the UDCPR is given more, the central government is taking more interest in terms of growing Maharashtra. And, I think what I understand is Modi has said that, he wants 1 trillion GDP for Maharashtra. So I was just calculating how many zeros it has got. So it is actually 80 lakh crores, which is not only to do with the construction, which is to do with everything. So I think that is where the vertical cities all come up, because every city has to grow. And among the richest cities in Maharashtra, I think Nashik is 9th in the list, out of which Mumbai is first. They've already phased all the high rise and all that. We've already gone vertical. So today it is all about, why do you require it and why is it important? And also how the mistakes, I would say, whatever we have faced, issues in Bombay and Pune and all the developing cities, how do we ensure that we have that leverage here? And Nashik understands those problems and they solve it beforehand, so that we don't see another vertical city in Nashik where, you have got a concrete jungle. So, or a glazed buildings, only glazed buildings. So I think that is the session. And I know all architects will be looking at that and saying that we need more high-rise here in Nashik, and some don't want it. That's what I understand. Either you can go linear or you can go vertical. So I would start with Sagar about it, and I would like him to explain what is Nashik all about in terms of where it was and how do you anticipate the future of Nashik as a vertical city.
Hello. Yes. Yes, good evening. Yes, basically high-rise building is a very debatable subject, everybody knows. But as per our condition now, I am practicing from last 20 years. And first there was ground plus 2, 3 buildings. Then bylaw change, one FSI converted into 1.4 TDR came. And FSI converted to 1.4, ground plus 7 buildings started. But now due to the basically DCPR, all scenario is changed. And about if you think of Nashik, the Nashik main feature is agriculture land. And if you want to save the agricultural land around the city, we have to go to high rise. There is no alternative. And land prices are also increasing. So I think the better we go for high rise building. But while going to high rise building, we have to discuss today about how we can solve the problems of high rise, like psychological problems, then services problem, and we are discussing about that. And Nashik is now, I think Nasik's population is 22 lakhs, and every year about 50 to 60,000 population is increasing due to the migration of all around Nashik, like small cities, Satana, Jalgaon, because a lot of educational institutes are there. Some families staying in Nashik and taking education. So people are migrating and lot of job opportunities are there. New IT buildings are coming. So high rise, I think there is no alternative for high rise. If we can save the agricultural land, green land, and the Nashik climate is such a good climate. To control that, we have to think differently. And for that, today we will discuss the issues of high rise and everything. Yes.
So why do you think we can't expand horizontally?
Because a lot of agricultural land is there. Nashik climate is good, and land availability, land prices are increasing. So to accommodate maximum people, we have to do the good high-rise buildings.
Like if you see Pune, it is more for IT. What is Nashik for?
Yes, Pune was like Nashik, But now many people are saying that पुण्यासारखं नाशिक व्हायला नको, नाशिकच राहायला पाहिजे.
No, but why
So-
why is it like, see, what I'm saying is, if Pune is for IT, Bombay is for a commercial hub,
Yes.
then Nashik, is it more to do with institutions, or is it more to do with any other thing which you anticipate in future?
I
That you
think
can-
the soil condition and everything, if you see, the agriculture is the main base of Nashik, and we can develop the agriculture also, because I think all cities are not like same. People are saying that IT आना चाहिए, लेकिन Nashik is a basis for agriculture, and it's a very important factor in Nashik. To save that, we have to work on that only.
So, but then if you say vertical cities, will it sustain? If it is only agriculture,
Uh,
it has to be something which brings the
No,
economy, it
institutional
increases.
projects are institutes coming in Nashik. Now new industries are there, and some IT park are also proposed. So after that, there will be the population growth will be the more faster. Like now, about 2 to 3% per year population growth in Nashik.
So you mean more job opportunities,
Yes.
more influx
Yes.
of people coming into the
As per the
students coming in.
Climate-wise, city location-wise, it's near to Mumbai, and it's a golden triangle. So I think Nashik is
So
a
how do
best
you
city.
think in next 5 to 10 years, how do you think Nashik will change? And how do you as an architect anticipate that, you control the environment in Nashik rather than make it like a concrete jungle?
Yes, I think we have to work on the infrastructure, and then into buildings with good housing complexes or good community living, and we have to develop and mainly infrastructure like roads, drainage, water supply. It's important to make good high-rise building.
Saurabh, what do you think Bombay was? Just to get Nashik in context to Bombay, because Bombay is already grown in terms of vertical and still growing.
Hello. Hello. So, as we can see in Mumbai, already what has happened, which we don't want to happen in Nashik. There has been a lot of land grabs everywhere. The density has increased tremendously. There is no place on the ground for amenities, recreations, everything. So we have taken a lesson over there. Now, what I would propose, in future, the vertical cities are bound to come, density is bound to increase, population is bound to increase because of the migration of population for better opportunities. So, how to make a building more sustainable? That should be the thought process. So, what I feel that till now we used to have a horizontal neighborhood planning. So that horizontal neighborhood has to be recreated as a vertical neighborhood. Like a building, when we are designing a tall building, we should see to it that the base should be kept for public transports, for metro stations, bus stations, parking and all. Then it should have a self-sufficient commercial areas so that people don't have to venture out, move away. And on top of that, there could be an office complex also in the same building and residential. So virtually what we are doing is we are making a composite building wherein a person is getting everything in that same building itself. So he doesn't have to travel out into the crowded areas, into the traffic, so much of population, so much of pollution everywhere. So it becomes like a nucleus of a building, of all the activities in one building itself. Probably if it is a tall building, the base could be like people coming and going more of a common areas. Then you can have some amenities floors also in between, like clubhouses, the recreational areas, the theaters, etc. So it becomes like a self-sustaining building itself. So, and again, we can, on top of the building on the rooftop, we could cantilever out and make a nice deck area so that that becomes again a public area for the residents to come and enjoy spaces. Also, the building has to be done in such a way that it doesn't become like a concrete jungle, what we are facing over there. The building should be designed in such a way that even the tall buildings should have a lot of gathering spaces, like blocks should be there, the terraces should be formed, the void should be created, so that the public area should be distributed throughout the building. It should not become like a concrete building. It should be like a nice habitable building with human touch. That's what I feel should be considered for a future tall buildings.
So Sagar, as per the new UDCPR, is there a master plan for Nashik? Is there a zoning or something like that where they've actually captured all that? So that you
Yes.
don't have every cluster of buildings and congestion in the
Yes, they prepared a development plan, and due to the Kumbh Mela, all major ring roads are developed, and every 12 years there is Kumbh Mela. So major roads are developed in that area, and then one smart city also they propose, but that is not yet finalized.
No,
in,
but there's a
development.
zoning for commercial, industry, institutional,
Yeah, there is
all
zoning.
residential and some public spaces. Is there all? It's all
Yes,
zoned.
there is zoning. Zoning.
Okay.
Yes.
So then you'd feel that it will be a better thing to go vertical, if in that case.
Yes,
So
of
you have a
course.
place
Because
for
the land are very availability of land is very difficult. So I think to accommodate the more people in smaller area is a
So what happens to the existing buildings?
existing building. Now many old existing buildings are coming into redevelopment and old city because they are 30, 40 years old and no amenities, no good parking, and so all are changing. And due to for the redevelopment also, government are promoting for giving extra FSI, extra premium.
The existing old clusters, the old areas, they have to be made like a cluster development. You have to bring a number of buildings together, the total
Get
area.
a big plot and then plan it.
So that you can plan it out better for the traffic, for the environment, and better planning for the building itself with amenities and all.
Right.
So it has to be like an integrated development, not
Like
an
in Bombay,
individual
like-
single building development.
Like in Bombay, like the slums and the mills, basically there were big properties that was basically made as a one cluster.
Yeah, it's a different story. Let's not discuss that.
Right. So, Rahul, what do you feel in terms of materials? What do you think the industry is all about? Nashik, you have been here since 1994, I suppose.
So, Nashik definitely has grown and is growing industrially. Along with industrial growth, there has been a population growth. People have been migrating and coming into Nashik in hordes for job opportunities, for income opportunities, and I have seen this city grow from 87 to today. I have, very often tend to compare Nashik to Pune. There are two cities which are both at a similar elevation. I think Nashik today is somewhat like Pune about maybe 10 years, 15 years or 20 years back, but a similar kind of environment. Both towns grew industrially, which led to a lot of housing and infrastructure growth. Weather conditions were similar. But today, for example, when I go back to Pune, and I'm talking from a layman's perspective, I find it's become a hotter city. There's a lot of pressure on the traffic infrastructure. There is a lot of pressure on the general infrastructure, water, pollution, XYZ. And the city is no more what it used to be. I remember going to Pune, you could sit in the summer with a fan and you were comfortable. Today you have to live with an AC over there. Nashik is still weather-wise better off. I hope the growth in Nashik is done in a planned manner and we learn from the experiences of other cities which have grown in a similar fashion. And Pune, Bangalore are some cities which have grown in leaps and bounds, and we learn from them and we plan our development and growth in a far better manner. Development and growth is bound to happen. It will happen. And if it is done in a planned manner, there will not be such a strain on the environment and infrastructure. Our entire vision should be to improve people's lives by reimagining spaces. I mean, that's a platform we've taken, and we request all of you to also think in those terms of reimagining spaces with an objective of improving people's lives.
Thank you. Ravi, as a contractor, as a facade contractor, so you've been working in different cities and maybe in Mumbai, Kolhapur or, Mangalore, all cities. So I think, what do you think Nashik is lacking right now in terms of facades? I would be specific to facades and building envelopes. So what do you think they're lacking and what do you think they should improve on and how do you plan to do it?
Yeah, with regards to facade is concerned, the major problem which we are facing is the non-availability of skilled staff. Skilled staff.
You mean labor or you mean designers?
No, even from the design perspective, the skilled staff is missing. So we need to periodically go on training our staff as well as our skilled persons for the new systems which we are inculcating every now and then. Apart from that, there are a lot of issues with regards to design concern is there. Now, when we are designing, when we are going to a builder, the first and the foremost question is asked is why we want a toughened glass to be installed at a, say probably a height of 30 meters. So can we not go with a 4 glass? So the basic onus is all economics. Everything comes to the economics. But when we try to convince them that you require a proper design parameters to be set for any facade coming up in Nashik. So these are the parameters to be considered. So I am marketing for you. So these parameters we come across where we face a lot of challenges with regards to design concern.
But do you think it is because of the selling price? See, like if you look at different cities, they have a different rate selling price.
Yeah, the ROI
so if I can't sell it, why should I build something which I need to pay more?
That's what we have been telling right from beginning. You do less as far as facade is concerned. Don't cover the whole building with glassard. We are still about to come out of this juncture where we are still doing glass facade on a dead wall surface. So we need to come out of this, and better we do very less quantity but do it very, very rightly.
So it can be durable. That's
yes.
what you're saying.
After 3 years, we don't see that the building is leaking. There is air penetration or whatever the flaws which we generally come across. So those parameters have to be dealt right from the beginning when the facade design is thought of.
So Sagar, there's a question for you straight away. What Ravi is saying is that you're basically designing buildings with full glass facade on the wall, which you don't require.
Yes, but if you visit the Nashik, I think Nashik architects are very sensible. Are not many buildings. no, many buildings are like
not
a full
debate.
glass.
There's just a question.
Yes, and Nashik climate is such a good climate. I think only in summers, I think 1 month, 2 months AC required, and natural light ventilation is good. So I think many buildings are without glass facades also.
But then why do you put glass?
Why do you put? No.
Is it for light or is it for performance?
Some people are putting it for aesthetics, but I think it must be for light and performance also.
Right. Then what?
But
Ravi
not
is
full
talking
glass
of is-
facade.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. So Ravi is saying 4 glass. That means it will not perform. So basic thing is, I think we need to have the benchmark in terms of, what other cities are doing, and then maybe scale up the whole thing and maybe reduce the quantity of facade and then get it right. That's what I think Ravi has a concern on.
Yes, in many cities I see the people are copying from any foreign buildings or anything. But fortunately in Nashik, it's not like that. If you will visit around Nashik, many buildings are sustainable buildings. 99% buildings are sustainable buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
So what, Ravi, what do you see is the challenges in terms of, designing? I know there are no skilled people. There are less skilled people, but you can always train them or you can outsource them.
Yeah, but training becomes a issue. If you see that there is no stream, or rather there is, even I have seen in ITI there is a course for tailoring, but there is no course with regards to a proper window fitting detail to be thought of or rather trained for, so that we have, because now we are having ample scope even with regards to windows as concerned. The high rise coming up, we are doing some projects where it's around 60 meters height. So I'm hoping that 100 will be touch 100 and 200 meters also in Nashik. But we need a proper staff, and periodical training is something which is drastically required.
See, but if you don't build up your business, then what happens is Nashik goes to the bigger brother, Bombay,
Yeah, that's true.
for projects. So that is what is going to happen. So if as a contractor, I think that is what needs to be inculcated in terms of systems and in terms of life safety, fire safety, all that comes into picture as a benchmark. So that awareness has to be built up. So how
That
do
is
you
right.
think?
So, yeah, of course, the training has to be done, and lot of education with regards to this fire safety is, as you rightly pointed out, not even a single building I've done in Nashik where the fire safety norms are carried out. Now, floor to floor, if there is the fire takes place, how the fire is going to go above. We have been seeing so many incidents happening in Mumbai as well as Kolkata. So those parameters, when we speak about when it comes to the economics, we'll just put it with granite or we'll just put it with some ACP sheet and we'll close it.
So is it that you need to talk to the mayor or whatever to get things done in terms of principles, the benchmark, in terms of what is required for the Nashik market?
Now what happened is it is changing now. It's a sudden change, like 7 floor to 20 floor, 30 floors. I think it will take some time, and we have to take care of ourselves only. What can mayor or anybody?
So you mean to say, as an architectural firm, you need to ensure that you put the right
we have
specs
to take
first.
care of everything, services, then elevators, because nowadays there are 2 podiums, 2-level parking above offices, then residential. We have to take care of services, future maintenance of the buildings. The high rise, it's not a very simple thing, because services is a major, and after building maintenance is a very difficult part. So I think all architects must take care of that. We must educate the people. We must take the training to builders, all our team, and it's a very important thing.
Saurabh, what do you think, as per your experience in buildings in Bombay, how do you think you can what input can you give in terms of having Nashik develop like that in the near future, in terms of all this, the parameters to be set, in terms of the benchmarks, in terms of architectural inputs? How do you think that happened in Bombay?
The benchmarks, basically, I would say that while designing a tall building, definitely the services that you said is very important. The traffic, the vertical traffic is as we all know that the speed of the lift, number of lifts has to be designed very properly. Otherwise, many buildings in Mumbai, we see people waiting on the lobbies for half hour to to get the lifts coming in.
Right.
So maximum waiting time should be 40 seconds, not more than that, for person to travel from one point to another anywhere, whether it's a 100-story building or it's a 50-story building, whatever. So that vertical transportation planning is very crucial. Then I would say firefighting is one very important aspect of a tall building. And once we go taller, it's very difficult to control the fire from outside. People say that fire brigade will come from outside, it will fight from outside. But I think the building has to be self-sustaining from inside. Right. The fighting system has to be very powerful from inside so that it can itself douse the fire. Other things which are important is the traffic planning of the parking spaces, because now we are talking of less land, more density, more number of cars coming in, so that traffic planning in, out, those ramp planning and all those things becomes very crucial and important. So a haphazard planning creates a lot of problem for the people living over there. And I would say, as simple as possible, we should try to keep the services, those planning aspects. Many times we have seen in Mumbai, people cladding the residential buildings totally with glass. So I have seen the value of those buildings going down rather than going up.
Right.
So I would prefer a building to be a residential building, especially to be planned in such a way that they have nice decks, terraces, even if it is a tall building, those decks, terraces help a lot because the wind which is coming in, the high velocity of the wind for a tall building which comes in, with these terraces, the decks, balconies, the velocity breaks down. So the actual pressure, the wind pressure on the building is reduced. And also these decks act as a very good shading device to the building facade. So, environmentally also the terraces, balconies become very good for a tall building. Then of course, orientation of the building, the sun angles, all those things are important. You have to capture the maximum wind coming into the building. The building shape of a tall building has to be very aerodynamic. That is very important. That the building is broken into parts, So when the wind is hitting your facade, so it gets broken. So it doesn't hit the facade with great velocity. It gets broken into less velocity, and that gives relief to the building staying in. So as we go higher, we see that the temperature cools down at a higher altitude. So this air conditioning and all is not required at a higher stage. So we have to see that good ventilated, lighted buildings, simple buildings with all the kind of services, know-how will become definitely important. So all those things has to be taken care of in a very professional manner.
So I think we touched base everything in terms of whatever we could in half an hour. So now I'll have the audience, ask some questions to the panelist. You're free to ask anybody. You want the mic? Yes.
Sagar, what do you think will be the highest building in next 10 years in Nashik? 100 meters. So we have seen most of the places across India from 3 floors to 30 floors, it reaches in 12 years. You take any B plus city, so you will reach up to only 100 meters, you feel.
Hello. Yes. I think 100 meter people are building now. And can you repeat the question?
In next 10 years, what will be the height? Possibly 40, 50, somebody is planning or thinking of achieving that goal.
We cannot predict because it's depend on the situation, how this building will react or behave. Because to maintain the high-rise building is also difficult. And it's not for only for sake of we make high-rise buildings.
Sometimes high-rise buildings are the necessity because of redevelopment. So when the building gets aged enough and you need to redevelop it and the members, the residents are not capable enough, FSI is the only incentive. So that is how the FAR keeps on increasing. So what do you think the real redevelopment with the help of TDR or maybe additional incentive FSI will start loading to the extent of 3 or 4 so that the building crosses 50 floors?
But FSI depend on the road and I think it's about in 15 meters also we can consume the 3 FSI. 15 floor, sorry.
Yeah, just you cross 4 FSI. Okay, I don't know. Now the FSI, the parameter changes city-wise. There are a lot of free of FSI components and sometimes everything is counted in FSI or FSI. So now to make the schemes viable for redevelopment, the FSI will keep on increasing every generation by generation. Okay, so what will be the parameter, the graph, climbing graph?
Maximum height is very difficult to answer your question because it's not depend on the behavior. What will be the
multiple floors.
Yes.
Well, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, there's like more of outdoor spaces in high-rise building, which give life to the building. Absolutely right. But when you correlate it with the bylaws, and especially now UDCR, when you talk of P line, because everything has been considered in FSI. So as a designer fraternity, like even Raja sir is here, I think how we as an architect fraternity could come up with something new to propose in front of the corporation, where all such kind of planning can be open for all the architects.
Yes, in current bylaws also, Aslam, the recreational space is allowed. For one floor is
But
allowed,
then,
and you can
see,
make-
recreational is a very stable space. What we are talking about attached with the flat. And when you talk of P line, I think Raja sir will be the right person to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. You have to consider everything. Everything is taken into FAR today in UDPCR. It's no more any free spaces. Even your terraces are in FSI. So that's going to be taken in FSI. You have to consider it while you design. But I would say, you know, what we face in Mumbai or what mistakes have been done in Mumbai, I think the smaller towns who are coming to the, you know, getting into the high-rise mode, you should be very careful. As Saurabh said, you have to do, if you're doing a redevelopment, it has to be a cluster development. It cannot be like what Mumbai did, you know, 33/7, and you were allowed to go any height, leaving 3 meters and 1.5 meters. They are going to be disaster. Those buildings, after a while, it's going to be a major problem. So I think the authorities and the local team, the architects that are there, they have to work together and come up with something which the mistakes that we made in Mumbai, you don't get repeated. So, yeah, and the other thing I would say is, I think they should put the onus of the infrastructure on the developer. So instead of just taking developer fees, they have to impose, if you want your completion or whatever, the infrastructure around the building, the roads, and everything has to be developed. Because today you see we are coming from Mumbai. If you travel, it's just about 2 hours actually drive, but the infrastructure is killing. So infrastructure is very important. I think we have to look at the infrastructure, and we should work with the corporation that once you're doing a tower, or you're doing any building, you have to do the infrastructure along with that, maybe some certain kilometers, certain meters along the building, and all those things have to be done initially itself. And we should look at, you know, multinodal things like what Saurabh said. We should have, you know, the rapid transport, the other kinds of parking systems and everything coming into the building itself, and the whole development should be looked at as a holistic thing, not as an individual thing. That's what mistakes we did in Mumbai. I think you should not do that.
To add to Kadri sir's question about balconies, I think in the new unified DCR, they give some 60% extra FSI by paying very less premium.
Incentive FSI.
60%, something like that. So I can assure you, a building, if you design a building with decks, and the adjoining guy has made a building without decks, terraces, so you will get a better value for your money. So it all depends upon the design.
Nashik is a good city. It is not like a Bombay and Pune. We have got a ample of horizontal open spaces like Jhansi, Jalalpur and other villages. If we include, we don't require high-rise building in Nashik nowadays. It is better than after 10 years, not now. We can go horizontal development. It is better. And the people living in high-rise building on upper story, particularly ladies, they are psychologically weak by depression. So high-rise building is not good for Nashik for nowadays. We can go horizontal and live with the nature, live with the nature. We have got ample of space around the Nashik.
So I would like to add one thing. If you do good infrastructure, like I emphasized, you can really spread the city vertically, I mean horizontally, sorry. Although I am doing a lot of high rises, I love high rises, but you can do, you know, the city horizontally, where you can travel, you know, I mean from work to home, you can travel within, by a, mass transport or something, where you don't use fossil fuel, you don't use vehicles, there's no traffic on the streets. That should be the thought, right from the beginning.
Less pollution.
Less pollution, less using, fossil fuel, yeah.
The climate is good in Nashik, so
Yeah.
it's good to.
Well, we are talking about high rise, okay? And from dais, of the dais, many people said many things. But yeah, in UDCPR, 70 meters is the thought is given for B-class municipal corporations that 70 meter could be the next height. But do these cities have the infrastructure which support this much of height? Now somebody asks from the dais, how many buildings will come as a high-rise structure in Nashik? Definition of high-rise is something different. And when we are talking about the height, 70 meter, 100 meters, the number of occupants are coming. And the sewage system, the water system, and those infrastructures are not there. If we definitely want, definitely Nashik is in need of such kind of landmark buildings. But if you have a proper infrastructure to promote this kind of buildings, and current infrastructure, see, Nashik is a very good planned city. Old Nashik is there, and then definitely layouts are there, where you don't have a piece of land or a Guntevari kind of development. It is a very good planned city, but not the structures or the layouts are not supportive to the high-rise building. So if Nashik need a high-rise building, so let's first think of something like a TP scheme or a bigger plot. So like a Hyderabad thing. You go as much as possible, but providing that you have ample water, definitely there is a very good water facility in Nashik, but ample water means the pipeline which is coming to your infrastructure, the drainage system, the road network. If it is there, then we should talk about the high-rise building. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would say, so we are not talking about today or 5 years or 8 years or 10 years. I think we have to focus on next 30 years, 40 years. So what is going to happen in 2040, 2050? So for that, we have to plan from now. We'll have to start making those infrastructure, those amenities, those sewer lines, water supply, road networks. So master plan, integrated plan has to be made, because you cannot stop the population. The population is going to increase. So otherwise, if we don't think now, then what happened in Mumbai? In Mumbai also, people were talking in the same way. There is no infrastructure. Why there should be development? But no one could stop the development. Development happened. The developers started making buildings, and now there is chaos. There is no infrastructure, but the buildings are there. So to avoid that, we have to today start thinking in a more integrated manner and start thinking about the infrastructure. What will happen after 30 years, after 40 years? So if we start thinking, we start the process, then only we'll come to a solution.
I think as an architect, we must fight with corporation for good master plan, other than the FSI and everything, all issues. So that is the main important thing, because without master plan, we cannot do anything. So I think all we have to need to go and explain corporation or any government authority to give good master plan to Nashik.
This discussion was about the vertical cities, but the success of vertical cities is, as Reza sir rightly pointed out, that it is not possible without developing the proper infrastructure in that city.
No, but that is obvious. It
Yeah,
has to be there.
Because
The
I stayed in Dubai and I stayed in Mumbai as well. And if we can imagine the kiosk which is happening in South Mumbai, even if I can give you the example of that Pandurang Budkar Road, the park project is there, Bombay Dyeing is developing 25 acres, Century Mill is there, Mahindra House is there, and in the morning, and there are, if we just understand the tenement density, all the cars are coming on the same road, which is of the same width from last almost 15 to 20 years. Even in Nashik, just before 15 years, I was traveling from Nashik road to Nashik just in 15 to 20 minutes. And now it is not possible to reach even in 1 hour.
No, that's
Even
what
yeah.
that's what Saurabh said. Saurabh said that if you don't plan for the infrastructure now, you can't build buildings.
Yeah,
It
so
will be a chaos
infrastructure
anyway.
first and then we can talk about the
Agreed,
vertical
but you can't
cities.
stop the population.
Yeah.
So basically, you will have the population coming. You need buildings to stay. That is what is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
And
it is not
secondly,
going to change.
Mr. Ravi rightly pointed out regarding the issue of skilled laborers.
Yes.
Even in today's context also, so many sites are having laborers without helmet and safety harness. And if we are talking about the high-rise building, first we have to develop that habit.
You can never develop without start taking the initiative.
Yeah,
If you
exactly.
don't take the initiative, if you don't plan, it's not
miss,
going to happen.
If we are dreaming for higher vertical cities, we have to start from all these things.
Agreed. That is a part and parcel of the whole equation. So if you want to develop, you need to plan.
Yes.
Anyway, I think the panelists have done a good job of really explaining what Nashik is going to be after 30 years, 30 or 40 years. Yeah, so I think the panel discussion was good. And next session would be more to do with, I think, materials and what Nashik requires. Now it's just the warm-up for Nashik. Thank you.